When I started doing the research on this movie, you know, you're vaguely familiar with this time period, but then you have to refresh yourself. And I did a lot of research. I did it for at least a month, month and a half. And what I noticed was that the women all had long hair, and the men all had facial hair. A lot of the men's clothes were in the charcoal gray family and the brown family and the black family, and their shirts were white or sometimes a textured stripe. And so we sort of based the color palette on that, because the women's clothing did come in lots of different colors, but for some reason it just didn't seem right for the story we were telling. And even if people were farmers, it's what they come to town wearing, particularly the gallows scene. It's their best outfit. It's 1870, and it's right when the bustle happened. It was actually a very short-lived phenomenon, and I love the idea of the hoop skirt. And so the majority of the women have a hoop skirt on, and I just wanted that domed shape to be sort of moving around the town, and I wanted to use some small prints on those dresses or checks or plaids, but muted, but it would to animate the crowd because the men were going to be in such dark colors. We also wanted to make it urban in a way because we wanted it to differentiate completely when they go on the trail, and which is much more of a classic Western look. Like, as I was going through all the research, I was like, there's not a single real cowboy hat. Like, the cowboy hat with that crease did not exist in 1870. The majority of them were city hats that were just worn out. There were some guys who had bigger, wider hats, but they probably would have gotten them in Mexico. That's where the wider brims had started and started to make their way up. And then Stetson was a dress hat company in Philadelphia. His son had asthma and he went west. And he sort of started to see these cowboys and saw that they needed a hat for droving. And so he said, I think these guys need a hat with a wider brim. And he went back and he had his dad make them, and it was called the Boss of the Plains. And it's got a 4-inch brim and a 4-inch crown. And that's sort of the cowboy hat of this time period. It's not, you know, what you would normally think of as the quintessential cowboy hat.
One of the most important aspects of developing a character for me is the wardrobe, and that tells you all kinds of things about the character. So as far as the costumes go, I'd work with Mary Zophres, and I sure admire her expertise on the looks that we were going for, and she gave me all kinds of wonderful books to look at all the different styles that the guy might wear, and we worked together for a few days, figuring out the right hat for the guy, the right patch for the eye. Boots are always important.
He's one of my favorite costumes. I couldn't find a coat for him anywhere, and Celeste Cleveland, who's my cutter, had started that Monday. We were fitting Jeff, I think, on Friday. I was like, I can't find a coat, and she made one for me without really any measurements of him, and we had some measurements of him from another movie, and the minute he put that coat on, we were like, done, that's Rooster. It was that was and it has a big slit up the back, so when he gets on his horse, it kind of,
I'll send help for you as soon as I can. Don't wander off.
But it's not too grandiose, and it's really, really aged. He has a cutaway underneath it. We have him wear his holster underneath his gut because Jeff really doesn't have a gut, but he kind of thrusts it out when he's Rooster. He has a shirt, he has a vest, he has his coat, so it makes him look a little bit bulkier. Maddie's costume the idea is that she's come to town, she thinks she's going to take care of her business in about a day. She'd figure she'd go home in the same dress. She has one dress, her one going to town dress. And it's a feminine dress. She just doesn't wear a hoop. She has petticoats underneath. When she decides to go on the trail, what she ends up doing is she takes her dad's pants, she takes her dad's overcoat, she uses her own coat that she's worn to town, and her dad's hat, and she puts those on with the same boots that she came to the town with. That's what she goes on the trail with. And she takes a belt off of her dad's saddle, and that's what she hoists it all together with. LaBeef is in buckskin. Nobody else in town wears buckskin. He's the only one for miles in buckskin. And so that was on purpose because we wanted him to sort of stand out as it's described in the script as someone with maybe a little too much panache.
This was a character who had a lot of he had a lot of flair, from the buckskin jacket to the guns and the spurs and everything. It's tough to be taken seriously in a buckskin jacket, so that was kind of a fun, play a bit of a dandy.
His facial hair is a little bit more sculpted and groomed, and he's got fringe on his buckskin. And LaBeef's hat has a fancier hat, and his has a wider brim because he's from Texas and very close to Mexico, so it could have come from there. And he's taken the time to give his hat a certain blocking. You know, it's got a curve on the side and it kind of goes over his eye. And again, it's like the buckskin coat. It's got maybe a little bit too much panache. It's scripted, and it's also in the book that Lucky Ned wears woolly chaps.
These were such a unique item because, you know, we really hadn't seen that in Westerns, I think, since maybe Tom Mix. So they needed to be very specific. They needed to look lived in and well-worn.
And they were huge. They were big and white and woolly. And I was a little bit nervous that I was going to be wearing these monstrous big woolly white chaps. But she said, no, don't worry. These are going to get all dressed down, and very much in the Coen Brothers sort of style of washing things out and really kind of as realistic as possible.
Woolly chaps are things that they're chaps made out of Angora. The front of them is made out of Angora. The back is leather. It was for rain, mostly. If the chaps got wet, it would repel the water just like on an animal. We had to have them made for him, and it was a really, really difficult job to age them. I had the most outstanding aging department on this movie. It was all about the aging, particularly the characters that are on the trail. Josh Brolin's meant to look like an animal. He should just look like a hairy animal. A lot of it was his facial hair, and like he got teeth, but you know, he's in a cutaway. It's sort of like as if he stole it from somebody. Like it's a little bit too small in the chest and a little bit too short in the length, but my thought was that he stole it off of somebody he killed. Having a great fitting with an actor and then watching all the elements come together when there's a big scene, and you know, the palette things you've talked about and all the alterations. Like, I'm a bit obsessive, and I do, like, even with all the principles and with all the background, it's like you're painting a painting with each person, and when you put all of those people together, it becomes an even bigger composition. And when they come to set, it's like harmony for me. It's like if it could be a sound effect, it would be voices just like, oh, you know, and that's how I get goosebumps every time. It all comes together and it looks how you want it to look, and it just comes from being collaborators, and that's how Joel and Ethan run their set. I think I love doing what I do because I work for them. Everybody talks to one another. It's how it should be. You know, it's a real collaboration.